Hello everyone, and today we're back for another Loomian Legacy Top 5 video, and in this video, we're going to be ranking all of Loomian Legacy Soulburst from worst to best. There are currently 13 Soulburst in the entire game, and let's show you all the crystals right now. The Burst, Stratoburst, Crackaburst, Eruptaburst, Gastroburst, Floraburst, Metroburst, Icyburst, Skeleburst, Joltburst, Noshburst, Soulburst, and Dragoburst. All of these Soulburst Loomians are all pretty good, honestly. Like, even the worst Soulburst on this list actually has a lot of play. Maybe not right now, but it actually had some play in the past. And the top two Soulbursts can easily be flip-flopped. This is by far one of my hardest lists to make because some of these Soulbursts actually support from the base forms of these Loomians as well. Meaning that the base form actually could make a Soulburst form a lot better. Not to mention that there are also some of the Soulburst form that pretty much just rely on their Soulburst forms, and that's it. Meaning, this list was actually very tricky to make. So, with that out of the way, let's head straight onto this list. Number 13 on this list will be Soulburst Florant, the worst Soulburst in Loomian Legacy right now. Now, despite Soulburst Florant being the worst out of all the Soulbursts, it actually is still a very decent Loomian, as all of the Soulbursts are really good in this game. Let's talk about the stats. Has really good base stats. 105 in the health, 123 in the melee attack, 112 in the melee defense, and 112 in the range defense. Making it one of the bulkiest Soulbursts in the game. And it also has a speed stat of 50, meaning it could actually be very good under Bane of Haste. It also has a good ability on Power Jaw, making its biting type attacks deal more damage. And this ability actually got buffed in the past, meaning that, yeah, Parasitize, Mega Chomp, and its soul move, Carnaria Snap, can actually deal extra damage, making Soulburst Florant hit even harder. It also has supporting moves like Photosynthesis, Dodge, Poison, and it can even run moves like Magnify if you really want. So, yeah. Why is Soulburst Florant in last place? The big reason is its typing. Plant Bug might be one of the worst defensive typings in all of Loomian Legacy, as it has a big quad weakness to Ice, meaning it's quad weak to Icicle traps, and it actually has trouble versus hazards as well, making Soulburst Florant actually very hard to get into the game most of the time. But once you do get it in the game, it can be very dangerous. It can poison the opposing Loomians, it can heal HP back with Parasitize, and it can just do a lot of stalling capabilities. Now, this Loomian will get Tamp in Season 3, and honestly, Tamp on a Loomian with that kind of bulk might actually be too overpowered. 1 or 2 Tamps might actually make it so Soulburst Florant can live multiple Ice-type attacks, which, keep in mind, this Loomian is quad weak to. So that is something I do want to take into consideration, and Soulburst Florant might be a lot higher on this list in Season 3, so I definitely want to keep an eye on it. Otherwise, Soulburst Florant is solid. Not the best Soulburst, but it's very good. And that's why it's number 13 on this list. Number 12 onto this list is going to be Soulburst Metronet. Man, do you remember when Soulburst Metronet was the most busted Soulburst in the game when it came out? Boy, times have changed. But before we talk about the downfall of Soulburst Metronet, let's first talk about its base stats. Has a health stat of 83, melee attack of 134, ranged attack of 147, and a speed stat of 115. Honestly, it has really good offensive stats, but the thing that really holds Soulburst Metronet back is its bulk. It really doesn't have good bulk on either side, but it can increase its melee bulk with Peace of Mind. It also has really good moves in Psycho Blast, Dark Surge, and Pyrokinesis. It even used to have Splitting Headache, but it did lose it, so that does suck. Its ability is actually pretty good as well. Its Demanding makes it so it actually heals HP back from all its attacking moves. And for a Loomian that hits very hard and it's very frail, it can actually get its HP back relatively easily, making Soulburst Metronet a very good late-game cleaner. But with all of these positives, why is Soulburst Metronet this low on the list? It's because it's the opportunity cost of not being Soulburst Stratosaur, Soulburst Sorrupdadon, and Soulburst Crackalola. 3 way better Soulbursts. If you want something more defensive, you have Soulburst Crackalola right there. It's probably the best Soulburst in the game, and it has so much utility. And if you want a Loomian that's similar to Soulburst Metronet when it comes to offense, I mean, you have Soulburst Stratosaur. It's faster, it hits a lot harder with Magnify as well, and it just is a lot bulkier as well. Not to mention that it also has a better defensive typing than Soulburst Metronet. When Soulburst Metronet came out, it was very powerful. It came out in Halloween 2023, and it hasn't changed. Ever since it's got a Soulburst, it hasn't changed, while the meta around it has. That doesn't even mention on how fast this meta is. Everything with over 110 speed runs very nimble to outspeed certain threats like Protagon, which is kind of insane. So, even though Metronet does have a high speed stat of 115, it can't be ran with totemized stats, which means it underspeeds Loomians like Very Nimble Shyenta, Very Nimble Ronsador, and Very Nimble Hunder. All of those 3 Loomians can hit Metronet very hard. And that's the big reason why Soulburst Metronet is this low on the list. It's fallen not because of itself, but it's because the meta around it has changed. Maybe Soulburst Metronet will be good in the future when the meta gets a lot slower, but right now, unfortunately, it's number 12 on this list. Number 11 on this list is going to be Soulburst Skele. And Soulburst Skele has always been a solid Soulburst. It's never been the top Soulburst, but it's always been relatively solid. It has a base health stat of 109, base melee attack of 134, and it also has a speed stat of 77. But that speed stat of 77 is clickbait, and it's because of 2 things. One, it has a move called Drudge, which can actually increase both its melee attack and its speed. Meaning, after a Drudge, it can actually outspeed most Loomians in the game, which is very good for it. And it also has the Rain Rush ability. Meaning that if you use Soulburst Skele in the rain, it actually outspeeds everything, because its speed is doubled in the rain. And since it does have a speed stat of 77, it means it can outspeed everything while it's in the rain. It also has some very powerful moves like Wave Wrecker, Mega Chomp, Primal Slash, Chili Chomp, and its soul move, Headless Rush, which hits very hard. It's also an ancient water type, meaning it actually has good defensive synergy as well, despite not being a very defensive Loomian. The reason why it is this low on the list is because Rain Rush Arpaigo is a lot better, and that doesn't even mention the fact that there are a lot of meta threats, like there's Lashent, there's Surkame, and there's Dokomori. All 3 of those Loomians that Skele really doesn't like. I mean, it can hit Lashent and Dokomori with Chili Chomp, but it really doesn't do anything with Surkame nor Luminami, which does make Skele struggle. While Rain Rush Arpaigo, on the other hand, has Magnify, has Zip Zap to pivot out, and is a lot faster, meaning it actually has a lot better matchup versus those common threats. It can Thunder Strike Surkame, it can Dark Surge Luminami, and it can Frost Beam the Dokomori, meaning that Rain Rush Arpaigo is just a way better Loomian, and it doesn't even take up your Soulburst spot. Despite that, though, that doesn't mean that Rain Rush Skele is bad. It's still a very good Loomian, especially if you use it on the right team. And that's why it's not the lowest spot on the list. That's why it is better than Soulburst Florant and Soulburst Metronet. It's because it has a lot more flexibility compared to the other 2 Loomians. And it actually is very dangerous while under the rain, especially if you can get a Drudge. So yeah, that's why it's ranked number 11 on the list. Number 10 on this list is going to be Atomic Hoganosh. Now, a lot of people might be shocked that Atomic Hoganosh is this low, because this Loomian can absolutely raid boss some matches. After a bulk up, it can actually be very dangerous to defeat. It might be almost impossible to defeat on either side. But before I talk about why it's this low, let me talk about its stats. It has 89 in the health, 129 melee attack, 95 melee defense, 114 range defense, and 61 speed. That doesn't even mention that it has Fiery Fondant, which increases its melee defense, has Muck Buck to hit those pesky fire types, and Baneful Bash to hit those pesky water types. That doesn't even mention its soul move. It's probably one of the best soul moves in the game. Meltdown makes it so not only that it does a lot of damage, but it also gets rid of the opposing Loomian's item. So it's basically a better slapdown. It also has Rejuvenate, where it can keep itself healthy, and its secret ability, or Soulburst ability, is Gorge, which means that if any Loomian tries to place hazards on you, you will actually absorb those hazards and get HP back. Now, this sounds like a very powerful Loomian, and it is. It's definitely a very dangerous Loomian if you're not prepared for it, especially since it is a very anti-meta pick, and it actually does good against the meta, Tyrex and Lashent. But the reason why it isn't higher on the list and it is this low is because of the opportunity cost of not being Soulburst Sorrupdadon and Soulburst Crackalola, which are 2 way better Soulburst right now. If you want an offensive fire type, Soulburst Sorrupdadon is right there. It becomes a fire earth type and it's immune to electric type attacks, while it can also set up a Magnify and clean up the game on the spot. While Soulburst Crackalola is a lot more defensively, can deal with hazards with Mudslide, and it can set up the heat, which can be very good for disrupting weather strategies. That's the biggest problem with Soulburst Hoganosh. It just stays as a pure fire type, and while it has some good moves and some good stats, it suffers from not being Soulburst Sorrupdadon offensively and not being Soulburst Crackalola defensively. And that's the reason why Soulburst Hoganosh is this low. The reason why it is this high, though, despite being outclassed by those 2, is because by itself, it still is very dangerous, and it does have some niches that Soulburst Sorrupdadon and Soulburst Crackalola doesn't have. and that's why Soulburst Hogan still makes the top 10 on this list, despite being outclassed by those two. Number 9 on this list is going to be Soulburst Joltto. When Soulburst Joltto was released into the game, it was probably the most broken Soulburst in the entire game. And even today, it's still very good. It has a base health of 94, base melee attack of 136, and a base speed stat of 109, meaning that this Loomian is very fast and hits very hard. This also has a huge advantage over Soulburst Metronet, and while it is slower, it has better bulk and a better defensive typing, meaning it can actually live hits a lot better. It also has moves like Thunderclap, Primal Slash, Bamboozled, and Earthquake. And its ability Royal Decree is really good, as its electric type moves bypasses the Earth type's immunity. And this is really good because at the time, the two meta Earth types are Tyrex and Gargoyle Defense. Both are weak to electric type attacks. It also has the best soul move in the game in Vulgar Fangs. It's 100 base power, and it can also remove support moves, meaning it's like Provoke, but as an attacking move, which is awesome. And when this Loomian was released, it had the move Drudge, and Drudge Joltto was an absolute monster because it hits hard and is very fast. So it clicked Drudge once and it won the game on the spot. But once it did lose Drudge, it did become one of the worst Soul Bursts in the game. This is probably the only Soul Burst on this list that at one point was considered the best Soul Burst, and at one point was considered the worst Soul Burst. So that is kind of funny in retrospect. But ever since Season 2, it did get Brawn Boost, which is a nice setup move. And with the existence of Thunderstorm teams being the best weather, Joltto is actually one of the best beneficiaries to Thunderstorm, meaning it's still a very good Loomian. In Thunderstorm teams and against slower teams, Joltto can set up a Brawn Boost and can definitely clean up the game on the spot. The reason why it isn't higher is because there are a lot of other offensive threats that are a lot better, and a lot of faster teams do defeat Soulburst Joltto. And that's the reason why it is number 9 on the list. But it's still a very good Soul Burst even today, and the addition of Brawn Boost and the regular base Joltto getting ambush buffed again is very nice for it as well. So yeah, Soulburst Joltto is still very good. A top 10 Soul Burst, and it definitely deserves its spot on this list. Number 8 on this list is going to be Tempering Dragodine. Soulburst Dragodine. Oh man, this Loomian is very powerful. Let's look at its stats. Health stat of 96, a ranged attack stat of 145, which is a lot, and a speed stat of 95. It also helps that it keeps its bulk from its regular form into the Soul Burst, which is really nice. And this is the first Soul Burst on this list where its base form actually supports its regular form really well. So yeah, the Soulburst form gets the ability Remorseless, which means if you pick up a KO, you actually gain a +1 ranged attack stat, which is very powerful. And this is already for a Loomian that has 145 ranged attack and setup and Peace of Mind. Has very good moves in Draco Beam, X Storm, Jet Stream, and Mud Spatter. It can even run other moves like Slumber to keep itself alive. So yeah, Soulburst Dragodine is really good, and that doesn't even mention the fact that the base Dragodine has the ability Staunch, meaning if you swap it in onto a Your Snack, you could set up a Peace of Mind, and then you could Soul Burst into Soulburst Dragodine and win the game on the spot. It's the first Soul Burst Loomian on this list where the base form actually supports the Soul Burst form very well, and this is also one of the best Loomians when it comes to Banana Split teams. You set up Banana Split, and then this thing comes in, picks up a KO, and it wins the game on the spot. Now, the reason why Soulburst Dragodine is not higher is because it does have competition with Nemesis. Nemesis is a top 20 Loomian, and it also has Pepper Burst, which can hit a lot of Loomians that Soulburst Dragodine can't. That doesn't even mention the fact that Nemesis is faster, but Soulburst Dragodine can run very nimble, so technically speaking, Soulburst Dragodine is faster than Nemesis. Another problem is that it is a lot slower compared to the other fast Soul Bursts, meaning it can get outsped by a lot of threats, meaning you are pretty much forced to run Banana Split if you want Soulburst Dragodine to get the sweep in the late game. Despite that though, 1 KO. All you need is 1 Peace of Mind and 1 KO. If you get that, you pretty much win the game on the spot. It's probably one of the most powerful wall breakers in the game, and one of the best setup sweepers in the game as well. And that's why Soulburst Dragodine is number 8 on this list. Number 7 on this list is going to be Overcharged the Cuda. And this is probably one of the most controversial Soul Bursts on this list, because Base Dakuda is technically better than Soulburst Dakuda. So let's get into this. So it has amazing stats. 119 base health, 119 base energy, 95 melee attack, 96 melee defense, 157 range attack, second highest in the entire game. It has 87 range defense and 77 speed. It also has an ability called Ray Gun or Railgun, which makes your electric type attacks deal 50% more damage. And this is for a Loomian that already has 157 range attack. And the Loomians that you can't hit the Earth types actually get hit by super effectively from Tsunami. It also has good coverage moves like Slapdown, Gamma Pulse, and Venom Slash to hit other threats. Now, yeah, Soulburst Dakuda sounds like a very good Loomian, but its biggest flaw is its slow speed stat. 77 is fast, but not that fast, as a lot of even bulky Loomians can outspeed you, which is actually very threatening. That doesn't even mention the fact that, yeah, the base form of Dakuda has 97 speed, and it actually has a lot better move pool. It can actually use its moves better than Soulburst Dakuda. The Venom Slash and Slapdown deals more damage with base Dakuda than it does with Soulburst Dakuda. Now, I know what y'all are thinking. Why is Soulburst Dakuda this high on the list despite base Dakuda being better? And it's because the base form of Dakuda actually supports the Soulburst form very well. You can run mixed on both a base and Soulburst Dakuda, and you're not going to know if it's a Soulburst Dakuda until it's Soulburst. Not to mention that you can still run Torrential Slash on a Soulburst Dakuda, and it can still deal a decent amount of damage. Not to mention Venom Slash and Slapdown can definitely destroy a lot of threats before you Soulburst. So you could stay as base form early game, and then you could Soulburst for the late game and then just nuke stuff. That's what makes Soulburst Dakuda very good, and despite not being as good as some of the last Soulbursts that talked about, this is coming off from base Dakuda, who's the number 5 PvP Loomian in the game right now. So, having support from base Dakuda definitely puts Soulburst Dakuda a lot higher compared to some of the other Loomians, and that's why it is ranked this high on my list. Number 6 on this list is going to be Terraform Gastroke. Soulburst Gastroke is probably the bulkiest range tank in the entire game, and I'm honestly shocked that I'm putting this Loomian this high, but I have my reasons. Look at its bulk. 140 base health, 140 range defense. Yeah, no ranged attackers can ever OHKO you, which is kind of insane. It does have no melee defense, but it's actually kind of clickbait. Its melee defense can actually live neutral hits on the melee side because of its high base health. But you do die from super effective hits, so that is its biggest weakness. Has photosynthesis, has poison, has stratagem, has mudslide, landslide. Insulated is an amazing Soulburst ability because the thing is with Soulburst Gastroke is that Plant Earth is not a very good defensive typing, but Insulated makes it so it's not weak to fire anymore, and it's only normally weak to ice. So Soulburst Gastroke's defensive typing, despite being very bad, gets bailed out by Insulated, making it very hard to defeat. It still does take quad weak to icicle traps though, so that is something to keep in mind. But the reason why Soulburst Gastroke is this high on the list is because of Tamp. Tamp Soulburst Gastroke is one of the most annoying Loomians in the entire game to deal with. If you put some investment on the melee defense side, 1 or 2 Tamps will make it so you just never die. You just click Poison, you just click Photosynthesis, Stratagem, and Tamp, and you win every single battle. That doesn't even mention the fact that Floroblast can actually hit plant types super effectively, giving Soulburst Gastroke an even bigger advantage. Yeah, Tamp Soulburst Gastroke is super stupid. I don't know why it didn't lose Tamp yet, because yeah, that is a massive problem. It legit never dies after a Tamp or 2. And I also don't understand why we're adding Tamp to Florant as well, but hey, it's Jamie's decision, not mine. Despite that though, Soulburst Gastroke is definitely the best range tank in the entire game, and it's probably one of the most underrated Loomians on the list. But it does fall short of the top 5 spot. Despite that though, the number 6 spot is still very good for Soulburst Gastroke. We're into our top 5 now, and number 5 on this list is going to be Soulburst Stratosaur. Soulburst Stratosaur has always been considered a good Soulburst, and you can tell by its base stats. Has 100 into the health, 100 in the energy, 67 melee defense, which is relatively low, 135 range attack, 78 in the range defense, and 119 in the speed. Comparing this to some of the other Soulburst Loomians, it might be surprising that Soulburst Stratosaur ranks this high, but there's quite a few reasons. It has one of the best defensive typings in the game, Metal and Air, meaning it's actually very hard to hit, and it's another one of those Soulbursts where its base form actually supports its Soulburst form very well. Its base form is really bulky, has good abilities in Frail Armor and Clutch, meaning you could set up a lot easier, and Toxic Filter makes it so you can't get poisoned. So it's a lot easier to set up in its base form, and then you Soul Burst and you clean up the game from there. It also has a solid offensive typing. It can't really hit metal types too hard, but if you can get rid of the metal type early, Soulburst Stratosaur can clean up. Has Jet Stream, Metal Blast, Airstrike, Energy Surge, Tase for support, Perch to heal HP, and Magnify as setup. One Magnify can make it good enough to just clean up the game. Not to mention its fast speed stat makes it a lot better compared to other Soul Bursts, like Soulburst Dragodine. While Soulburst Dragodine hits a lot harder and can snowball a lot faster, Soulburst Stratosaur is a lot more consistent because it's a lot faster, and it has a better defensive typing as well. Soulburst Stratosaur is a nightmare. If you're not prepared, if you don't have any resist to Soulburst Stratosaur, it can just completely sweep your team without any problems. It does have a couple weaknesses though. It's the reason why it's not higher is because a lot of priority Loomians have been used, like Vengeance Servland, Wildfire Land Torch, Foresight Thawman, not to mention Zulong still outspeeds it. And if you run very nimble, you do lose a lot of damage. And you kind of need to run very nimble now because Loomians like Cheyenne-Ta, Ronsador, and Hunder all run very nimble. So you definitely want to outspeed those critical threats and Oko them with your metal type attacks. So yeah, that's why Soulburst Stratosaur isn't higher, because it is forced to run very nimble. But if you do get a Magnify setup or a Frail Armor boost, this Loomian can absolutely clean up the game. And that's why it deserves number 5 on this list. Number 4 on this list is going to be Soulburst Sorrupdadon. This is also one of the OG Soulbursts, and this Soulburst has always been very good in this game as well. It might be surprising that Soulburst Sorrupdadon ranks higher than Soulburst Stratosaur, but I have my reasons. Has 81 health, 104 melee attack, 127 ranged attack, 94 range defense, and 80 speed. It also has Pyro Pro, meaning that its moves hit a lot harder. So that 127 ranged attack, that is clickbait. It gets buffed by Pyro Pro. And that doesn't even mention the fact that it has some amazing moves. Fire Earth Stab with Dark Surge coverage can pretty much hit anything in the entire game. It also has Magnify. Yeah, you can see why Soulburst Sorrupdadon is very powerful. It may be the most one-dimensional Soulburst in the entire game, but that doesn't mean that being one-dimensional and being a one-trick pony doesn't mean that you aren't good. Because this is one of the best wall breakers in the entire game. There's not a single Loomian in the entire game that can live any of these hits after a Magnify. It's simply impossible. It hits that hard. Not to mention, its soul move is also amazing. Hellstorm does 100 base power, and if that Loomian stays on the field, they will take damage over time, which just adds up even more. If you're using it on a Loomian that can soak its hits, that Hellstorm damage will add up very quickly, and it makes Soulburst Sorrupdadon a lot harder to deal with, and a lot more annoying. Yes, this Loomian can get outsped, but if you put Soulburst Sorrupdadon in a pretty good position, it ultimately doesn't matter. Not to mention that the meta right now is filled with Baffle Yursnak and Flash and Flee and Seasong, Luminami, and Surkame, so it's a lot easier in this meta to get Soulburst Sorrupdadon in the game. It also has a lot of support moves as well. It's going to get Blaze Rush in Season 3, and it even has Mudslide to get rid of hazards. So it can even be ran defensively as well, because that makes it so Soulburst Sorrupdadon has a lot more flexibility compared to some of the other Loomians. And that's why Soulburst Sorrupdadon is number 4 on this list. But its slow speed stat does keep it out of the top 3. Let's head to them right now. Number 3 on this list is going to be the banned Soulburst Icicle. Now, a lot of people might be shocked that I'm talking about Soulburst Icicle because this thing is banned from competitive play. But honestly, this Loomian should honestly not be banned from competitive play because I don't think it's that overpowered. It's still a powerful Loomian, though, because it did make number 3 on this list. The stats are pretty good. 105 in the health, 99 energy, 132 melee attack, 104 range melee defense, 91 range defense, and 50 speed. The thing that's kind of surprising is that its ability is Party Trick, which casts Bane of Haste at the end of the turn it switches in, meaning this is probably one of the best Loomians in the game that can set up Bane of Haste. It's kind of weird, though, because the base Icicle is actually slower than Soulburst Icicle, so it is kind of weird. But you can kind of use this to its advantage. You could run a faster Soulburst Icicle, and then use its pivot moves to switch into another threat. You have Fade Away, and you have Baffle. 2 pivot moves, which means you can pretty much Baffle on any Loomian in the entire game. If there are light types, you click Baffle or Mega Chomp. If there are no light types, you just Fade Away and get a lot of damage. Not to mention that Soulburst Icicle can actually run Bane of Haste itself, and it has other moves like Blaze Chomp, Chili Chomp, Ice Hammer, Thunder Chomp. It pretty much has any move in the game to hit at least any threat for super effective damage, which is nice. And it also has Rejuvenate, meaning it can actually keep itself healthy. And, frightful surprise, its soul move resets up Bane of Haste, meaning you don't even have to run Bane of Haste in order to get Bane of Haste off, because Icicle can set up Bane of Haste for 2 times without even having Bane of Haste, which is a huge plus for Bane of Haste teams. Icicle is a must-have for any Bane of Haste team because it's so flexible, has good pivot, and it can set up Bane of Haste for free twice. Now, the reason why I don't think it should be banned is because Bane of Haste as a playstyle is very hard to play with. You only have a certain amount of turns to play with Bane of Haste, and it doesn't even mention the fact that Soulburst Lola, a Loomian we'll talk about later, and El Iguana are pretty much Loomians that will never die under Bane of Haste, which those 2 Loomians can just stall out Bane of Haste, and they can click Rejuvenate. The reason why Soulburst Icicle was so ban-worthy in Season 0 wasn't just because of Bane of Haste. It was also because of Fog Tyrannics. Fog Tyrannics set up Bane of Haste Icicle very well because they both have pivot moves, they're both very bulky, and at the time, Fog disabled Loomian's abilities. Apart from Spirit types, which Icicle was a Spirit type. Now that Fog has gotten banned, I actually do think Soulburst Icicle should be given another chance because personally, I don't think it's ban-worthy because Bane of Haste is such a hard playstyle to play, and a very common Loomian like Soulburst Lola can just break through Bane of Haste very easily. There's also other Loomians like Foresight Thawman, Wildfire Landtorch, and Vengeance Boosted Servlin, where its speed doesn't matter because they have priority attacks, meaning they can work inside and outside of Bane of Haste, meaning Bane of Haste teams are a lot harder to use when those Loomians are running around. So that's why I think Soulburst Icicle should be given another chance. Not to say that it's going to be bad, I think it's really good still. There's a reason why I put it number 3 on this list. But it's definitely not broken anymore, and honestly, Jamie, just give Soulburst Icicle another chance. Trust me, it's not that overpowered. Bring it back into the meta. I think it will be just fine. But yep, definitely deserves number 3 on the list. Number 2 on this list is going to be Stellar Chime Celesting. And yes, this is the Loomian that has the highest win rate out of any Loomian in Season 2. So it definitely deserves this top 2 spot on this list. Some people might even say that this Loomian belongs at number 1, but I have my reasons why it isn't number 1. Let's look at its stats. 150 HP, 111 energy, 128 ranged attack, 114 ranged defense, and 121 speed. This Loomian could pretty much do everything. The only thing it can't do is live any melee hit. Even not super effective melee hits can absolutely destroy Soulburst Celesting. But if it was just this Loomian would not rank that high. It also has its base Celesting form, which actually has decent melee bulk. And its defensive typing of light metal is actually really good. Its base Celesting also has Mystic Tone, meaning it can call any move in the game, and Reverberate, which can make it so you can block Seasong from Surkame, a very meta threat. But the moves is what makes Celesting one of the best Soul Burst in the game. Has Metal Blast, Nova Blast, Flash and Flee, Luster Loot, Peace of Mind, Barbs. This is the best Barb setter in the entire game. Has Miracle Beam, which is a very good soul move because it's basically like Wonder Herb, but as a soul move, meaning you get a 100 power attacking move that also heals every status condition from your team, including yourself. Other moves it can run is Deja Vu, Icicle Traps, and not to mention Health Gift, as this is also the best Health Gift Loomian in the entire game. This Loomian can pretty much do anything. It can be ran offensively, it can be ran defensively, and it can 100% be ran supportively. It's definitely one of the best support Loomians in the game, and it's probably one of the best range tanks in the game while at it. And it can even deal a lot of damage. Unlike other range tanks, you can't just let Celesting sit there, because it does a lot of damage with Flash and Flee, and Metal Blast can hit a lot of plant types. Not to mention, Barbs and Icicle Traps can chip a lot of damage over time, making Soulburst Celesting very dangerous. It's kind of shocking that Soulburst Celesting has the highest win rate in the meta, where Tyrex and Lashent are the 2 most common Loomians. You know, 2 Loomians that Celesting has a negative matchup against. That's what makes Celesting's very high win rate even more impressive. And that doesn't even mention the fact that, yeah, this Loomian could pretty much fit any team style, and is a must-have if you don't have a Soul Burst. But the only reason why it isn't number 1 is because I think the number 1 Soul Burst is a tad better. Plus, sometimes its low melee defense and its lack of damage could sometimes bite it in the butt. Despite that, though, it's pretty much the perfect Soul Burst, except for the number 1 slot. the best Soulburst in the entire game is Soulburst Crackalola. I don't think anyone is surprised about this Loomian being number 1. I mean, look at its stats. 115 HP, 125 energy, 105 melee defense, 126 ranged attack, and 109 ranged defense. The only bad stats it has is 63 melee attack, which it never uses, and 12 speed. This makes Soulburst Crackalola the slowest Loomian in the entire game. And while that does sound like a bad thing, it's actually very good on Soulburst Crackalola, as it's actually one of the best Loomians that can deal with Beta Haste teams. That doesn't even mention that its base Crackalola form is actually very good as well. Has good bulk, and its 2 abilities in Combustible and Scorching Skin can absolutely stun melee attackers. You can also run moves like Raging Flame, so if you don't have Combustible or have already Soul Bursted, you could still stun melee attackers. The base and Soulburst Crackalolas actually support each other very well. But we're talking about the Soulburst form here. And Fire Spirit is a really good defensive typing. While it does have a lot of weaknesses, it doesn't matter because Soulburst Crackalola is so bulky anyway. And it hits really hard because it summons the heat. And it has 110 power Flare Blast and 125 power Eruption, meaning despite being a tank, this Loomian actually hits very hard. It also has covered moves in Dark Surge, Spectral Burst, and Mud Spatter, meaning it can pretty much hit anything in the entire game for super effective damage. It also has moves like Tear Down and Mudslide, meaning it's one of the best hazard removers in the entire game. And it has Rejuvenate, meaning it can keep itself healthy. This Loomian lives super effective hits constantly. It lives super effective jet streams from Nemesis. It's that strong. It's good on both the melee and range side. And that's what makes Soulburst Crackalola the best Soulburst in the entire game. And if you're not running a Soulburst Crackalola on your team, you're going to lose a lot of battles. Unless you're using maybe Soulburst Celesting. The number 1 and number 2 spot can easily be flip-flopped. Because both Soulburst Crackalola and Soulburst Celesting are both really good. I definitely, if you don't have a Soulburst Crackalola, you have to have a Soulburst Celesting. If you don't have a Soulburst Celesting, you gotta have a Soulburst Crackalola because both of them are amazing. That doesn't even mention the fact that Soulburst Crackalola actually has a decent matchup versus Tyrex and Lashent. While they both can hit Crackalola for super effective damage, they're both melee attackers, meaning you can Raging Flame them or hit them super effectively with Flare Blast. It's even better that Heat Summon is its weather because it's its Soul Burst ability, meaning that if a Deludrix leads and you have Crackalola, its rain gets set up first, and then you Soul Burst, meaning you can override the weather, and Soulburst Crackalola is one of the best Loomians at overriding other people's weathers, which just gives Soulburst Crackalola a lot more flexibility. And that's why Soulburst Crackalola is the best Soul Burst in the entire game. And here it is, Soulburst Crackalola, the best Soul Burst in all of Loomian Legacy. I hope you guys enjoyed this, ranking all the Soulbursts from worst to best. This is probably one of my hardest lists to make because all the Soulburst Loomians are so hard to talk about because they have so much flexibility. And that doesn't even talk about their Soulburst form. That also talks about their base form as well because the base form of some of these Loomians actually supports the Soulburst forms a lot as well, making this list very hard to make. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if other people's Soulburst lists were a lot different than mine because, yeah, this list was definitely very hard to make, but I hope y'all guys enjoy it regardless. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see y'all all later. Bye-bye!